we have a 21-year-old daughter who is a junior at the University of Southern California, and she's at the Thornton School of Music, and she's an artist. She's a vocalist and a singer-songwriter and a pop musician. And she texted me the other day, and she said, "Are you getting excited about your book? I can't wait to read it. I've been high-fiving myself in the mirror." And I said to her, "How's the high five working?" And she said, "Well, I don't know what to say when I do it. Because sometimes I still look in the mirror and think you're not as pretty as the rest of the girls." And I write, "Well, you don't need to say anything. The high five communicates it for you." And then she said, "But what if I didn't accomplish anything? Like I didn't work out or I didn't write a song today. Should I still high five myself after my shower?" And I said, "Yes. You got to keep showing up every day, trying to do a little better. And that alone makes you worthy of support and celebration. You see, we have the secret to life and happiness and motivation all backwards. You think you need to accomplish something to be worthy of a high five." She writes, "Wait, you mean the fact that I exist deserves a high five?" I said, "Yes. And when you high five yourself for just standing there in front of the mirror, you are demonstrating that you see you and all your potential. You support you and you believe in you, and that no matter what happens today, you have got your own back." And then I said, "What do you think about what I just wrote?" And she said, "I love it. It makes me feel great." And I said, "Can you explain why it makes you feel great? Because it might help me explain this to everybody else." And she wrote, "Well, what the high five shows you is that you don't actually know how much you're always doing. And I think that once you start high fiving yourself every single morning, it almost allows you to be more present to everything you are doing. And it helps you recognize all those small victories. And when you compile those small victories, you can recognize all your accomplishments, big and small, and eventually come to believe that not only are you worth it, but you could do anything."
For those of you listening, can you believe that somebody has Mel Robbins as a mother? A few somebodies. God. I mean, what an unbelievable thing that this is just us texting. This is just a Tuesday. It is gorgeous. And I just am in awe. I mean, yeah, that's what would happen is you would start to take a better look. A better look is the right way to say it. You know, what really is the state of affairs.
Well, can I say one thing though, too, though? Thank you for the compliment. But the truth is, both of my kids have a therapist. And one of the things they struggle with is they look in the mirror and they say, how will I ever have the kind of success that my mother has?
Yeah.
And so even on the outside, looking at somebody else's life, we all look in the mirror and flip everything to the negative, to an obstacle, to like, instead of saying what you said, which is, thank God I have my mom. And they feel that way. They do feel that way. But when we have insecurities, Cathy, we are masterful at seeing the world around us in a way that twists things so that it makes your insecurities feel bigger. We write extensively about this in the High Five Habit, about your brain and how to start making your brain work for you. But you asked about the 5-second rule. So the 5-second rule is really simple. It's a brain hack that is backed by science. You simply use it this way. The moment you feel yourself hesitating, you know you need to do something, whether it's get to the gym, put down the glass of wine, stop snapping at your kids, get out of bed, get off the couch, speak up at work, have the hard conversation, quit the job, whatever it is, the action that you're avoiding. The second you feel that hesitation kick in, you need to start counting to yourself backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's it. That's all that it is. When you start counting backwards, it requires you to focus when you first start doing it. So your prefrontal cortex engages, which means by counting backwards, you interrupt the self-sabotaging habits of overthinking, of worrying, of procrastination, of self-sabotage, fear, anxiety, all of it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you cut through it. And when you hit 1, your prefrontal cortex is engaged and you have a moment of control and you need to move. Walk away from the booze, pick up the phone, walk out the door, get up off the couch, start the conversation. And the second you move, you're now in control. And so I invented this to get out of bed. That's the best way to start experimenting with it. Set your alarm a half an hour early tomorrow, because that way it's going to feel painful. Because, you want to resist this a little bit. You want to be like, oh my God, because the resistance you feel anywhere is the resistance that you feel everywhere. Yeah. So when the alarm goes off early and you're like, ugh, and you start talking yourself out of it. I don't feel like it. This is stupid. I don't want to. That's all self-sabotaging patterns. Just count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It shuts it up. It switches gears in your brain. And now you have immediate control over what you think and do next. And that's the window in which you can change anything in your life. And so the 5-second rule, think about it as a tool in your back pocket to give yourself a push. The high five habit is a part of your ritual every morning to change and improve the relationship you have with yourself, to forge a trusted partnership with the person you see in the mirror, to silence the self-loathing and the judgment that is contained in the resistance that you feel. And to literally program a whole new story about yourself, that you are somebody worth cheering for and believing in and forgiving. And, I'll tell you, one of the things that's interesting is that, I've been practicing this now as part of my morning routine every morning for more than a year. And something crazy has happened. I don't actually need to high five myself anymore. Do you want to know why?
Why?
I don't ever criticize myself. Like, I don't even see my body or my face. I literally, Cathy, have erased, like literally deleted a lifetime of self-criticism and self-hatred. And I have programmed in an entirely new way of relating to myself. Does that mean I'm perfect? No. I have compassion for myself. Does that mean I get everything right? Absolutely not. But I can forgive myself. Does that mean my life is easy? Definitely not. But I can ground myself in optimism and faith and know that even the hardest fucking things that happen, and this has been one of the hardest years of my life, that I know that something amazing is coming. I like to say this because I think it's true. And I think it's really encouraging that, you and I can look back and we can look at the hardest moments in our lives. And, whether I'm thinking about a best friend that was killed in a drunk driving accident, or being molested at the age of 4, or the guys that I cheated on that I hate my, self for doing and made myself wrong, or the anxiety or the terrible career decision. I can just look at all of them. The bad friend that I was, the jealousy that consumed me. I can see every single thing, especially the bad stuff, is like a dot on the map of my life that has led me to this moment. And I can now, sitting here, look back and see the lesson or the wisdom or the person or the experience that challenge in my life or that thing that I used to regret has given me. I think the real gift that you could give yourself is being able to stand in this moment and know that this moment, no matter how hard it is, no matter how challenging it is, no matter how exhilarating it is, that it too is a dot on the map of your life that connects you forward to something extraordinary that's coming. And if you could only stop resisting that, and if you could only wake up every day, no matter what's going on and the ups and downs, and look in the mirror and see a human being that's there to help you and cheer for you and support you. And if you could only give that person the support and reassurance and belief that they so desperately need back, you will be shocked at how much more fulfilling your life is, how much easier things come, how much more quickly your resilience rises up as you get tested and terrible things happen and your heart breaks and life challenges you. Because it is true, absolutely everything that you have faced in your life has prepared you and made you a better person. And right now is going to be no different. The confidence and the energy and the resilience and the courage that we all want in life, you don't build that when things are amazing. They're like steel, they're forged in fire. And when you realize even the stuff that you don't ever want to live through again, or the most painful things in the world, they're all teaching you something, whether you like it or not. And having this sort of high five attitude has, made me less stubborn, because what I can see now is my life has been trying to teach me the same fucking lessons. I just was pretty stubborn. And so life just kept coming with bigger and bigger sledgehammers.
Yeah.
And when you're open to the lesson that your life is trying to teach you, it's pretty miraculous how quickly new chapters open up in your life.
So what can we do to get to that moment with routines, practices, disciplines? How do we get there? Because there's got to be, there's always something that leads up to it.
Well, one thing that I've learned in life is that your breakdowns are just going to keep getting bigger until you wake the fuck up and get the lesson that the universe is sending. I mean, period. It took me a long time to see that I had a very painful pattern of being drawn to really big personality people who were really fun and edgy and just like, wow, like a shiny object. And then, when you're having fun with this kind of person and you're laughing all the time and they're really edgy, and you start to realize, oh my God, they're actually kind of mean to people, or they lie, or they do this. Now, all of a sudden I get scared because I don't know how to back away. And time and time and time and time, like I can go all the way back to friends in elementary school, to a babysitter that I once hired, to business associates back in the day, to like just there they are, there they are, there they are, there they are, there they are. And it wasn't until I had a massive issue happened with one of them that was super painful that made me go, holy shit, this is a pattern. This person has been showing up in your life since you were 9 years old, and you have not learned it. And now you have a very expensive and a very messy and a very awful situation to clean up with somebody that you couldn't draw boundaries with, period, because you were so worried about upsetting anybody or disappointing, like you're people pleasing. And so one thing to understand is your life is the greatest school you're ever going to attend, and it's always sending you messages.
Preach.
And I hope you're not as stubborn as I am, because it took me 41 years to see the lesson about toxic behavior that I was attracted to and toxic behavior that I engaged in my own people pleasing and inability to draw a line and like distance myself or end relationships that really didn't work. And I know they don't work because I get that feeling in my stomach, and then I see myself twisting myself in knots so as to not upset somebody who's basically crazy. And I'm now like turning all around to not upset the person that is, I'm afraid of their reaction because they're not regulated in terms of their emotions. And so it took me a long time. And so I want you to understand, if you're listening to this, that if you're in a frustrating situation, I want you to ask yourself, number one, when in my life have I felt like this before? And who has made me feel like this? What situations have made me feel like this? And start listing them. And when you see one, you'll see another, and then another, and then another. And then there's that boss, and then there's a situation. And then you'll ask yourself, what is it that I'm doing that is having me show up in this situation again. And so I identified kind of the personality pattern that I was drawn to: fun, unpredictable, like life of the party, like kind of like just, woo, this feels fun and this feels on edge because I can't predict what's going to happen because this person's so entertaining, only to realize, holy shit, the same thing that drew me in is what's scaring me now and turning me into a massive people pleaser that makes me go crazy. And so if you can identify that, then you ask yourself, what is the lesson that life is trying to teach me? Mm-hmm. This person is being sent into my life to teach me a lesson. And for me, the lesson, again, back to your original question, why can't we listen to our instincts? How many of us have started dating or sleeping with somebody that we knew we shouldn't have been dating or sleeping with? And then we keep going back, even though we knew that this is not a person that we should be with. And we like turn into somebody else, reckoning with and this person is being sent into your life for a reason, because you have a pattern that you need to break. And so when you can identify those three things, kind of when in my life have I felt this way before? What are the circumstances or people I've been around? What am I doing that I can see contributes to me getting into these situations? Mm-hmm. And what is this trying to teach me? Mm-hmm. Oh. And when you can look at it that way, that's how you unpack awful situations or confronting situations, and you look for the lesson in them. And if you don't figure out the freaking lessons you're meant to learn in this lifetime, you will just keep getting them. That's it. That is it. And so, that's one thing that I have learned recently. And then the other thing that I have learned, and, it's what I wrote about in the High Five Habit, is this notion that, there's only one person that you spend your whole life with, and it's yourself. And I had this epiphany in April of 2020 when I walked into the bathroom one morning. And, there's a lot of shit going on in my life. And it doesn't even matter what the details were, because I think everybody's had that experience where you're in a season of your life that's just overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And you don't feel capable or like you have one shred of energy left to face this shit. Mm. And I remember standing there in the bathroom, and I had this epiphany one morning where I realized, oh my God, there are always two human beings in the bathroom every morning. There's you, and there's a human being in the mirror. That's not your reflection. If you allow yourself to really look past the body in the mirror and through the eyes, you will see a human, you'll see your soul. And that woman that's staring back at you in the mirror, she is trying. She is so beaten down by you. She is so sick of your criticism. She needs you to wake up and start supporting her and to start being kinder to her. She's doing her best. And kind of this epiphany that I was relentless in my criticism of myself, even just 18 months ago, even having turned my life around, built this business, got our family out of the $1 million in debt, got the liens off the house, which, they were there 6 years ago, the liens from the $1 million in debt that my husband and I were in because of the restaurant business. Wow. And despite the fact that I've impacted millions of people's lives, despite the fact that I have 3 kids that are okay, they're healthy, they, are facing their stuff, they're doing their thing, they're going to school, despite the fact that I've been, married for 25 years and we still work on it despite the fact that I got a roof over, I look in the mirror and I see a woman that I hated, that wasn't enough, that was doing everything wrong. I was relentlessly focused on what wasn't working. instead of all of the things that were going right. And when I had this epiphany that, oh my God, like there's this poor lady in the mirror every morning who just wants me to see her and wants me to start being kinder to her and needs my support, my whole life switched. Like I had life inverted in so many ways because, I was kind of, it sounds like you, like I was brought up, I wasn't in an abusive household at all. I was in like your normal kind of like, happy household, whatever. My parents have their own shit from their childhoods and everybody does. And so, I though kind of had that sense of, okay, tough love, man, push yourself. You got to muscle through it. And I think between the constant criticizing that you do of yourself to try to fit in and the fact that then gets reinforced by experiences in your life, I just adopted a habit that everybody has: rejecting myself, not accepting myself, constantly badgering myself for the things that weren't going right instead of the million things that are.
Yeah.
And when I reversed this and started to add in habits around empowering myself, cheering for myself, forgiving myself, giving myself some grace, being a little kinder to myself, focusing on what's working instead of harping on what's not, it is bananas how much my experience of life changed.
Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
It's hard to get to that point where we actually acknowledge our inner monologue as being important and even notice it instead of being on the wheel of the same shit we say to ourselves in our head every day when we are in the workplace or with our partner or looking in the mirror, and we say the same shit every day, right? I do. And we're harder on ourselves. It's like, I love, there's, I think maybe it was Untethered Soul, but talking about the way that you talk to yourself, like you would never be friends with your inner monologue. Never. Like who would ever be friends with the stuff that we say to ourselves in our head? So what I hear a lot of is I hear accountability in this practice of saying, I'm going to treat myself, my inner child. Like to me, it was, when I hear that, I don't know what you call it, but if it were me looking in the mirror saying that, that's my inner child going, I fucking love you. Like you're beautiful. You're amazing. Why are you so hard on me? Like yourself. Why?
Because you were trained to be hard on yourself. That's the answer. Like I literally, the thing that's so profound about this for me is that when you realize this is just a pattern of thinking that your mom has with herself, your dad has with himself, every human being is trained to beat themselves up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make a decision to stop doing it. And it is a conscious decision that you have to intentionally make and then manage all day long. And what's amazing though about your brain is because your brain is designed to learn patterns, the switch is very quick. It's easier, in my opinion, to change the default patterns in your brain than to kind of smooth out the trauma that is remembered in your nervous system.
Oh, sure. Seeing it for the first time takes forever. Changing it is the quick part. That's why when people are in the shit, I'm like, you're actually a lot further than you think.
Yeah, totally. And so the cool thing is that when you get to work on your thinking patterns, it can happen super fast. In fact, that's why I'm so excited about the idea and the research behind adding a high five in the mirror every morning to your morning routine. And the reason why it is such a powerful habit when it comes to your inner monologue is because you're unlocking neuroassociation and programming that is already in your brain, in your nervous system, in your chemistry, and you're now going to aim it back at yourself. And you're going to aim it back at yourself as a way to delete the critic in your head and to replace it with what you need, which is an encouraging voice. And by simply physically raising your hand, don't even say anything, just physically raise your hand and high five the woman you see in the mirror every morning after you brush your teeth. What happens is all the positive programming that's triggered by the physical hand gesture of high fiving, it literally gets triggered right here in your subconscious. So the funny thing is that you can be standing there, you're using your prefrontal cortex, you're like, okay, I'm going to do this stupid high five thing. As you go to raise your hand, you can think, Danica and Mel are the dumbest things. I cannot believe I'm doing this shit. And then as you get close to the mirror, something weird happens. Your mind goes silent because your brain is triggered by the high five gesture and pulls programming from your subconscious. This is positive programming, your subconscious. Yeah. You've never high fived somebody and thought, I hate you. I hope you lose. Today's a terrible day. Right. You've only high five people when you're like, I see you. I love you. Keep going. You got this. We can win. I believe in you. It's celebratory. You. Yeah. I respect you. So when you do it to yourself, the subconscious programming overrides the critic. It's insane. You will likely laugh the first time you do it because your brain then gives you a drip of dopamine. The other thing that you will feel is you'll feel a slight little kind of like, oh, I got, okay, this weird. But that sort of little energy boost comes because your nervous system is encoded with celebratory energy. When your team scores, you throw your hands in the air. When you're yell surprise at a birthday party, hands in the air. When you cross a finish line, hands in the air. When you wave hello, hands in the air. When you high five somebody, hands in the air. And so when you high five yourself, positive subconscious programming, drip of dopamine boosts your mood, and the celebratory energy in your nervous system gives you a little jolt. And that's not all. Your brain is watching. And your brain sees you treating yourself like a person who cares about you. That leverages behavioral activation therapy because you are now acting like somebody who cares about themselves. And we've done this thing called the High Five Challenge, where I think it's been live for about 48 days. We've had 145,000 people take it. It's a 5-day online experience where I coach you every day in a video. There's 145,000 people in it from 91 countries. We have the data because it's hosted on an app. It's 100% free, and people are joining it every single day. And we have measured the results. Not a single person that's taken it has said this hasn't worked. Not a single one.
Unreal.
We are getting people talking about how it's spreading through AA meetings because there's so much shame and there's such a sense of failure when there's things in your life that you regret. And so, one of the reasons why it's so powerful as a tool for forgiveness is so many people, 50% of men and women, don't or can't look at themselves in the mirror because they don't like the person that they are, or they are disgusted with where they are in life. 91% of people don't like how they look. And so when they look in the mirror, they pick apart or fixate on what they don't like. These are habits of self-rejection.
Of course. It's like giving yourself the middle finger every time. It's like the high five is the opposite of what we normally do, which is basically look in the mirror and go like this, which is kind of 1,000% right. Like, oh, your hair is not that, and you're kind of a little fat here, and you're kind of looking a little old there, and with gray hair, or, just you're a failure. You don't do anything. You don't deserve to get ready and even try today. No one's going to care. You don't care. It's a giant middle finger to yourself most days. Every day. The opposite of it. The high five is the opposite of it. What I'm fascinated by also is the physical touch aspect. How does that play into things? Well, there's a tremendous amount of research about the power of a high five when somebody else gives you one. And it's because there's a transfer of energy from one person to the other. And what they know based on research, because there's 2 studies that people tend to fixate on once they read the book. And the first one is the study that they did with NBA teams,
where researchers at the University of Berkeley looked at championship NBA teams, and they wondered, were there preseason habits that this team had that the losers didn't have? And it turns out there were, and it was a surprising one. And what it was high fives, fist bumps, and pats on the back. Teams that win at the end of the season have the most high fives, fist bumps, and pats on the back at the beginning of the season. Why? Well, because these aren't just meaningless gestures. These gestures create trust and partnership. They create forward momentum. And so teams that were doing that frequent and early on built trust and partnership and forward momentum that carried them through to win the season. Now, the Wall Street Journal editors read about the study and were like, there's no way this is true. And then wrote a huge article after watching all the tapes and going, actually, this is true. And so when you do that with yourself, you're creating trust and partnership with yourself and forward momentum, sending you into the game of life every day. The other study that people love is the one with students in a classroom. And so researchers wanted to know, if you gave students a really challenging problem to work through, what's the best way to motivate them to work harder, work longer, kind of push through the really challenging aspect of this. And so they tested 3 different types of encouragement. They divided these kids up into 3 groups. The first group, the researchers would walk over and simply tell them something nice, like a compliment. And this is kind of why words of affirmation don't really work. Oh, you're really smart. Oh, you're doing a great job. Oh, I can see you're like whatever. The second group, the researchers walked up and complimented the kids on their effort. Oh, I see you're trying really hard. Oh, I see you really working, the growth versus the fixed mindset. The third group, this is where this gets interesting. The researchers walked up and didn't say a word. They just gave the kid, as they're struggling through this challenge, a high five. Those kids that got a high five outworked, like 10x the other groups. God. They worked longer. They worked for better result. And here's the most important part. They felt best about themselves compared to the other groups. Why? Well, the reason why is, again, because it's not just a gesture that's meaningless. What the high five communicated is, I see you. So a high five when somebody's struggling is, I see you're struggling and I'm here to encourage you. It says, I hear you. I hear that you're struggling. I'm here to encourage you. And it says, I believe in you, which is exactly what we all need to hear. This is why, by the way, we are incessant people pleasers. It's because we literally are looking for other people to see us, to tell us that they hear us, and to tell us that they love us, like us, and believe in us. And I'm here to tell you that the best way to get that need that is so important fulfilled is to make it a habit to fill that need for yourself every single morning by high-fiving yourself in the mirror.
It reminds me of kind of something we were talking about earlier, which is just, what am I trying to get from someone? And it was like, for me, I was trying, my whole dilemma was in relationship, and I wanted to be chosen. And I realized in that want or need that my lesson was, I was supposed to be giving it to myself. I was supposed to be choosing myself, which I didn't really know how to do.
That usually requires you to leave somebody you're with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because the reality means that probably the situation you're in is a pattern. So we're trying to, like in my experience, I'm trying to correct the dad wound, right? I'm thinking, if I can correct the original wound where I wasn't enough and I was pushed really hard and hard on me and emotionally disconnected, if I can correct it with someone, then everything's okay, but it will never happen. These are just patterns to show you something that you're supposed to look within yourself for. Are there like big aha moments for you that you can think of where it was like, man, that was it. That's where I was supposed to be doing the exact thing I wanted from somebody. Because I think to myself, like, even with the high five, it's like, high five yourself, it's like you could also high five other people too. Like, you know what I mean? When
You're already doing
the
that.
way you treat yourself is the way you treat other people.
You treat everybody else way better than you treat yourself. So the issue is not high-fiving everybody else. The issue is being able to look yourself in the mirror and see a human being that's worthy of it. And if you struggle with shame or regret, or your criticism is relentless, high-fiving yourself is going to feel weird, because when you look in the mirror, you see somebody who doesn't deserve that. You see somebody who's made mistakes. You see the failure. You see the things you regret. And one of the reasons why high-fiving myself in the mirror and adding it as a habit that I start every single day with, I send myself into the game of life with that high five. One of the reasons why it has been so transformative is because it is a tool that teaches me how to heal all the things that I need to heal. It is a tool that teaches me how to like myself as I am, even if I didn't go to the gym, even if I drank a bottle of wine last night and I'm hungover and I said I wouldn't, even if I snapped at my kids, even if I didn't get through the to-do list, even if I still haven't reached my goals, I still look in the mirror and I see a person I like. I see a person I'm encouraging. I see a person who deserves that kind of support. And then I use the tool of the high five habit to give myself that support. And that has changed everything, because when you like yourself, you don't need to seek it from somebody else. Like other people liking you is a bonus. If other people don't like you, it might sting a little bit, but it doesn't change the fact that you like yourself. And the reason why you can be sure that you like yourself is because your brain sees you treating yourself every morning with that high five in the mirror, like a person who likes themselves treats themselves. Same thing with respect. The reason why people have tremendous difficulty with boundaries is because they don't respect themselves. They disrespect themselves all day long. So how on earth are they going to find the strength to have boundaries?
Exactly.
It begins with how you treat yourself in the mirror every morning, and then it builds out from there. If you treat yourself with respect, you will not allow somebody else to disrespect you. But we allow other people to disrespect us because we treat ourselves with disrespect.
Yeah.
You build it from the inside out. And so this has been the single greatest lesson of my life. Seriously, that being kind to yourself, being accepting and supportive of yourself is the superpower, is the source of motivation, is the source of confidence. And what I love about it is it's a tool. It costs nothing. It works for everybody. There's tremendous science. And it's free. So we've talked about the fact that I believe every single human being has this habit of self-rejection. You practice it every morning without even realizing it in this moment in the mirror in your bathroom. And then it gets carried throughout your entire day as you beat yourself up, as you focus on what's going wrong, as you point out the negative, as you pick yourself apart, as you hide in the back of group photos, as you stay silent. Like, these are all habits of self-rejection. And so what we know for sure is that and I ask people, just please give us 5 days, just do this for 5 days, because something extraordinary happens within 5 days. We have 126,000 people from 91 countries going through a 5-day challenge that I call the High Five Challenge. They have completed the challenge. We have not had a single person out of 126,000 people report that it didn't work. And so what you need to know is that when you stand in front of the bathroom mirror, you put your toothbrush down and you stand with yourself for a second, it will feel weird. And that's good. It should feel weird because, in my opinion, that is evidence that your brain is now plowing a new neuro response instead of operating the habit loop of rejecting yourself. Just like, I'm a right-hander. If I lost my hand today and I had to write with my left hand, it would feel weird. That's a sign that I'm learning something new. So if it's weird, good. What we notice is that there's only two reactions that people have to doing it the first time, raising up their hand. The first reaction is positive. So either a lot of people laugh, that I believe is the cortisol. A lot of people cry in a very positive way. And the crying is really good because the way that everybody describes it is it's like a decade or decades of emotional release, of finally getting it. Like you just woke up and you have come home to yourself. And you realize how long you have been longing for that connection and acceptance and seeing from yourself. Is there something that you want to add to that positive thing before we go negative?
Can I show you some models? It's going to make it super easy. Okay, here's a brain and a skull. And here is another model of the brain and body. And so my audience is very familiar with what I'm going to say, but there's always new audiences watching. So I'm going to explain it again. So now, as you've explained that to me, as you said those words to us, that was a sound wave, electromagnetic light waves. Our mind receives that energy. And then the psychological part of our mind does a think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose at 400 billion actions per second, which is a lot to process what you've just said. Now, because it's coming from your place of total love and kindness and absolute passion to share this with people, so everything about you, all the photons you're generating, as Einstein would talk about it, are coming from a place of absolute love. They're coming from your wired for love nature. So that whole message is being received by all of us in this incredibly healthy way. So it comes in, but now this is what happens. It comes in your words into the brain, show up in the brain. The brain responds on a neurophysiological level, a neurochemical level, an electromagnetic level, a quantum level, and a genetic level. Your words at the speed of 10 to the 27 are busy converting into little amino acids that group together to form proteins, and our vibrations inside of those proteins vibrating in the region of 528 hertz and above, which is super healthy. Every concept you're giving us is vibrating in its own unique way. So it's your own unique protein. So by the end of this, however long conversation, people are going to have 2,000 or 3,000 plus concepts that they would have taken away from you. And each of those would have grown into a tree like this. So in your brain, you're literally growing trees that I call thoughts. Thoughts look like trees. As neuroscientists, we talk about the thoughts in the brain having an arbor-like structure, tree-like structure. So all of us at this moment are taking your and my words and growing this into these trees. But notice a tree, and I'm going to use this little pot here. A tree is planted first with the seed and then roots. So our words are the root system. And it's the same thing, proteins and whatever. So this is a thought tree about the conversation with Mel about the high five. So the tree is called the high five. And the detail is the conversation. Now, what you and I are saying is the source. So the memories of this thought tree, there's source memories and there's interpretation memories. And you'll see the significance of this now relating, and I'm belaboring the point because this is why the high five is just so important. And I'm using this conversation as an example. So the thought is made of memories, root memories, and branch memories. So memories are not the same as thoughts, exactly like a mind is not the same as brain. Mind is the action, it's the processing, it's the electromagnetics, it's the gravitational field. You have your own gravitational field around you and through you. An electromagnetic field is different to mine. I can't take yours, you can't take mine. But when we interact, we enhance each other. If we are in conflict, we don't enhance each other. We cause brain damage in each other. So as humans, we are wired to enhance. We're wired for love, which is what the high five is helping yourself do personally. But the collective response that you're creating is an enhancement process. But coming back to this, what's actually happening in the brain is that we are all building this root system of the source, which is what you're saying and my responses to you. But every single listener and viewer is interpreting this immediately in a parallel. It happens immediately, simultaneously. So the root branch above the ground, the memories above the ground, the branch memories and leaves and trees, whatever you want, whatever shape it is, are the interpretation of what you're saying. So every person is hearing the same thing, but in seeing it in their own different way. They're applying it to their life in their own different way. So now they are busy building an insurance policy in their brain. This high five content is a neural structural change. And I studied neuroplasticity. I was one of the first in my field in the 80s when they told us that you can't change the brain. So that, and now it's accepted fact. So we are being neuroplasticians. We're being brain surgeons, neuroplasticians, historians, archaeologists, all that to build this conversation. So in other words, this conversation's created a structural change in your brain that is a healthy structural change, that if people go get your book, if they get into follow you, whatever, they are then going to stabilize this. But they will lose everything that we are saying if they don't stabilize this and turn it into a habit. And a habit takes 63 days minimum, not 21. Most people think that it's 21. So so I'm just telling the whole audience, if you want to benefit from what Mel and I are talking about now, you need to take this. You need to actually get the book, get my Neurocycle app and my book, and learn how to apply this over the 63 days. Because there's very little research showing how long it takes to create a neural network like this that is sustainable. So we're doing this now. But if you don't apply this within 24 hours to 48 hours, most of this beautiful tree would denature and become heat energy. What a waste. Then they know, I heard something that Mel spoke about, something about high-fiving, but it's something good for me, and then they won't really apply it and they won't get the benefit that you're desperate for people and passionately desperate for people to get. Because when humans are functioning as themselves, we won't see what we see in the world that we have today. We won't see this mess and conflict, etc., etc. So that's getting super philosophical. Now, that's healthy. When you spoke about the complaining habit, I have to grab my toxic tree. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, let me see it. I'm imagining like a dead, yes. Okay, great. Yes, this is so good. You know what I love about this is that I love the high five because it's a physical thing that's so simple that has this profound shift throughout your mind, body, spirit, and that think, feel, choose loop. I love the visuals that you're bringing to the table, because the second that you said, I got to get my toxic or negative, I can't remember what word I'm like, I imagine a dead tree.
There you go. There it is, Mel. There's and these are built into neurons on the brain. So these are the dendrites on it. Everyone's seen what a neuron looks like. And I think if you don't, just Google it if you don't know what a neuron looks like. These branches here are where memory is stored, not in the synapses. Synapses are short-term memory. So as we're speaking, you get synaptic action, and then the actual memory stored here. And so these are the dendrites. So they look like trees. So now here, this is a healthy conversation. It's a healthy tree. The proteins fold correctly. The quantum energy is correct. The neurochemicals are correct. Your whole neurophysiology, endocrine system, immune system, everything's happy. Okay. But this is a toxic reaction. So when we have this wake up in the morning and you talk about the patterns that most people are waking up and saying, I hate myself, I'm not good enough, the FOMO, the FOPO, all those people pleasing, all that, I can't do this, you said the saggy boobs.
It's all the same thing, by the way.
There you go. It's this thing. It's how the statements that we're making about ourselves are this part of the tree, the interpretation. So if we look at our interpretation, we can then track the interpretation of why am I saying this about myself? So that's the root system. Like the root system of this conversation is our words. There's a source. There's also a source to the complaint. Why are you looking at yourself like that? And this causes brain damage because, as you said in the beginning about how we've got on, you said very, very beautifully about our neural network and our brain and body are designed to celebrate. That's the wired for love concept I spoke about. So this threatens survival. This causes brain damage. This I hate myself stuff activates the immune system in the same way that COVID does. In other words, there's an immune response to this. T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, macrophages, all going to that site, creating inflammation. And if you keep on 63 days later, 9 weeks later, 18 weeks later, a year later, you're still doing this. This thing, whatever you think about the most, has grown. This is enormous, and it's in your non-conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is a bridge between the conscious and the non-conscious. The non-conscious is where everything's stored. In the non-conscious mind, it's gravitational fields. In the brain, it's trees. And in the body, it's a change in your gene code. This is how powerful this stuff is. So when you high five, you are actually drawing up this toxic thing that's been there for 9 weeks, 18 weeks, 5 years, 25 years, 40 years. And you are actually, and from neuroscience, we know that as soon as you draw something up and you become aware of it, you weaken it. It becomes malleable and changeable. If I don't change it and I walk away from the bathroom mirror thinking, oh gosh, I hate myself, boom, it goes back stronger. So tomorrow it comes back even stronger. And this is in the non-conscious mind, which works 24/7. It's the most powerful and intelligent part of you, and it's driving everything that you do. So how I see the high five, and I don't want to take any of your time because we want to hear you, not me, is the high five is breaking that. It's pulling this non-conscious out of this non-conscious view of myself.
You know what it is?
Out.
You gave me an idea.
Okay, go
it's
for
an
it.
axe.
It's an axe. There we go. It's an axe. And it's an axe that's not only chopping it down, but it's got to dig the soil out because you've got to get the root system. You know, like when you take a weed out of the garden, you can't chop off the head. You have to get the whole weed upended. So the high five is preparing you to do the work of actually getting it out. So it's putting that spade or axe in your hand. Love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah.
So that's
exactly what it is.
So every day when you do this, you are allowing yourself to bring your identity to the surface, which then drives every other part of your mind, which then drives your brain and your body, which then changes your lifestyle. So this is a step into reversing that terrible statistic of people dying younger.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why it's so powerful is because it does not require you to say anything. The positive programming is already associated with the physical action. Because you've never high-fived somebody and thought, I hate you and you're worthless. Your brain cannot actually, neurologically, it is impossible to think that thought as you high-five yourself. Impossible.
And that's so true. So scientifically, to back you up there, it's the wired for love nature. So that's built in. I spoke about an insurance policy earlier on. A wired for love nature is our insurance policy. It's why I talk about it as the wise mind. So in the depths of the middle of this forest of all these trees, and some of that look like this, some look like that, there is this beautiful green forest, and that's where the high five resides, in that forest, in that gravitational field, as a resilience network in your brain and in your genes. So it's in all over the place. So it's a recognition of truth.
Yeah, I think that's why people cry, is because by high-fiving yourself, you are reconnecting with your true nature. And that is a powerful spiritual experience.
Speak more about that. That is so true, because I want you to speak about that, and then I'll throw some science in afterwards, because that is so huge.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting you. I get so excited about this, particularly since you and I like freestyling. It's amazing. And I can't wait to get together. We got to do an event for people or something and just really.
Yeah, that's it for sure. We can sit there with all of our little props and we have to. We promise you people this is going to happen.
Yes. So it was interesting because the very first morning that I did this in April of 2020, during a very overwhelming moment in life, when I first did it, my immediate reaction was to laugh. And then I sort of laughed. I realize now I laughed because of the dopamine, but I also laughed because on the kind of surface, standing there in my underwear, high-fiving it just seems so stupid and pathetic, like when you just first hear it. But I will say, even though lightning didn't strike and heaven didn't open and the angels didn't sing that first morning, but I did feel this little flip. Like I felt almost like the high five had almost turned a light switch on, because I noticed my mood went from feeling energetically down, defeated, overwhelmed, to all of a sudden this shift in energy. I didn't even think these thoughts, but I would describe the thoughts sort of like, okay, come on now. You got a roof over your head. You can handle this. You've been in way worse places. Get out. It was sort of like that, sort of like, here we go kind of energy. But I'll tell you, it was the second morning where it went from this sort of funny thing that I did to something profound and deeply moving. And so I woke up the second morning. And you talked about cortisol levels, and I believe that you'll have to tell me if this is true or not, that your cortisol levels tend to be higher in the morning. A lot of us experience a higher level of anxiety in the morning since we're anticipating that the day is going to go bad. So a lot of us already, whether it's because of past trauma or it's because of just what's going on in your life, or because it's a habit to wake up and feel this level of anxiousness. I woke up feeling overwhelmed, feeling defeated. I use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I get out of bed. I start walking to the bathroom. And this is when the high five habit became something bigger. I realized as I was walking to the bathroom that I was feeling something that I hadn't ever felt in my entire adult life. And this is what I was feeling. You know how when you are going to meet a really like dear friend that you just adore, and you're about to walk into the cafe, what do you feel in that moment when you're about to walk in and see somebody you really adore?
Anticipation, peace.
Yeah.
Excitement.
Exactly. I realized I was feeling that about seeing myself.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And I've been excited to see an outfit or a haircut. I don't ever recall as an adult feeling excited about seeing the human being Mel Robbins.
Oh, wow. This is amazing. This is core to who we are as humans, and we've forgotten to see that in ourselves in this very fast, technological, physically based world where you've got to get something from outside in to make you feel better, which is how we've been almost programmed. What you're saying is the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah. And so that
profound.
It was a profound feeling. And as I turned the corner and stepped into the bathroom, sort of the profound nature of what was unfolding was hitting me. And it was that second morning, realizing that I was excited to see the human being, Mel Robbins, that I realized, oh my gosh, all this time, it never occurred to me that there's another human being in the bathroom standing there in the mirror. And I believe that represents your soul and your spirit and
wise
who
mind.
you are. Yes, your wise mind. And as I stood there and I had this moment of really just being with the human being, Mel Robbins, it was profound. And I, kind of had, that was the second morning was the morning that I cried when I high-fived myself. And it was as if years and years of feeling isolated or feeling not good enough or feeling invisible or feeling whatever, the pain that we all feel at times in the human experience, that the high five became a recognition of just how much I have lived through and how much I needed and deserved support and encouragement, just like every human being does. And so that's when it really started to crack open. And it's also something that when I notice something, and that is this, you can stand there and be with yourself for a minute. And, when you first start to do it, particularly if you're somebody who has a hard time looking at yourself, or you hate so much about where you're at in life right now, or what's happened to you, or whatever it may be, you can be thinking and feeling all those things. But I noticed in that second morning that the second you go to raise your arm, your mind actually goes silent.
Mel, why am I constantly victimizing myself? Why am I beating myself up? It's a great question. And here's what we're going to talk about today. You need to stop victimizing yourself. You need to stop beating yourself up. You need to stop telling yourself that you're a bad person or selfish person. You got to stop with this crap. All right. And we're going to address it today in this video. And here's how this is going to roll. I am reading my international New York Times best-selling book, The High Five Habit 2, cover to cover. Today, chapter 5, we're starting on page 63. The title of this chapter, Why Am I Broken? Or not, that's not what the title is. The title is, Am I Broken? Because you're not broken. Sometimes you feel broken, and the reason why you feel broken is because of the victimizing and the crap that you keep saying to yourself in your head. And today, that's going to stop. So, the other night, we were having a family dinner right here in this house, outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and one of our daughters started talking about friction that she was having with one of her roommates. And here's what our daughter said. I just always feel like I'm the bad guy. It doesn't matter what I say or how I say it. Every time I talk about what's bothering me or I express a boundary, I end up feeling like I'm in the wrong. It happens so many times. I'm now telling myself, I'm selfish. I'm selfish for feeling this way. I'm a bad person for feeling this way. That's what my entire year has felt like, that I'm a bad person. I'm the one that's wrong. And I don't know how to stop feeling this way about myself. Do you ever feel that way about yourself? That you're a bad person or you're selfish for expressing what you need, that you try to explain yourself and it never comes out right. It always creates a friction. It always creates argument. It's always tense. I hate feeling that way. And I know that that's a really familiar feeling. So if you can relate to this, that you feel like people don't understand you, you feel like you're in the wrong, you feel like you're a bad person or that you're selfish for needing what you need, you're watching the right video right now, because we're going to address this. And I also want you to know you're not alone in feeling this way. This is so common because as we're sitting around the dining room table here in our house outside of Boston, my husband, Chris, tries to console her. You're not a bad person. Yeah, you've done some kind of bad things to your roommates or as a roommate. We all do. But you're not a bad person. Everyone screws up. That's how you learn. Just promise me that you will stop telling yourself that you are a bad person. So this is step number 1. How to stop victimizing yourself. How to stop beating yourself up. Number 1, you must stop labeling yourself as a bad or selfish person. That's got to stop right now. So stop labeling yourself as a bad person. You can label behavior. You know, I feel bad that I was passive aggressive with my roommate. I feel bad that I lost my shit last night with my spouse. I feel bad that I didn't do the thing that I said I would do. I feel bad that I was gossiping about my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, whatever. You can feel bad about the behavior, but do not label yourself a bad person. That's rule number 1 when it comes to stop victimizing yourself and stop making yourself wrong. Rule number 1, stop labeling yourself as a bad, selfish, or whatever person, okay? It's good to label the behavior because then you can focus on changing the behavior. But never label yourself as a bad person. And here's why. My husband, Chris, tried to console her and said, you're not a bad person. Everybody screws up. That's how you learn. Stop telling yourself you're a bad person. And then he went on to explain. After my restaurant business collapsed, I felt like a complete failure because the business had failed. Everywhere I looked, that's what I saw. I wasn't there enough for you kids, so I failed at being a good dad because I was always working. I failed at being a good husband to your mom because I hadn't made enough money, so I failed to be a good provider. And once I started saying that I was a failure, all I started to see was that I couldn't do anything right. And here's the problem with labeling yourself as a bad person or a failure, everybody, is that the more you repeat it, the more you believe it. You see these labels that you repeat. I'm a bad person. I'm a screw up. I never do anything right. I'm selfish. I'm not a good person. All these labels, they start out as just you trashing yourself once, but the more you repeat it, it sticks. And this label that should be applied to behavior, not to you as a person, that label starts to stick. And then as you repeat it, it's no longer something you're describing. It becomes almost like the identity that you believe about yourself. That's why we got to stop labeling ourselves and be talking about the behavior we want to change instead. And what my husband said is right. The more you say it, the more you repeat it. And then you repeat it, you'll believe it. And it starts to become like a dark pair of sunglasses. Saying that you're a failure colors everything that you see. I want to show you something. I think there's sunglasses in this drawer right here. At least I thought I saw. Oh, we did. Okay. So when you repeat behavior, like I'm a bad person, I'm a failure, I'm this, I'm that, it's literally like putting on a dark pair of sunglasses. It colors the way that you see the whole world. Like when I don't have these sunglasses on, things are much clearer. If I put the glasses of failure on, I'm a bad person, I failed, it tints the way you view the whole world. And that's why we're going to learn how to take those glasses off. And step number 1 is stop calling yourself names. That's how you stop victimizing. That's how you remove the glasses. Well, then our daughter then responded to my husband. Well, Dad, I have that story too, that I'm a failure. See, being a music student, I walk into a classroom or a studio and I always notice all the much more talented and cool kids. And I think about how much further along they are in their music careers and whether or not they've been signed to a label or they're already releasing music or they're gigging. And then I look at myself and I say, well, I'm a failure compared to these cool and talented people. And then our other daughter chimes in and she says, well, we're definitely related because I always think I'm the biggest one of my friends and Mom thinks everything's her fault. And then she turned to our son, Oakley, and said, Oak, what negative stuff do you think? And thankfully, Oakley has a sense of humor because he's like, I'm not getting involved in this conversation because you guys are really depressing. And that made us all laugh. And then one of the girls turned back to Chris and said, no, seriously, Dad, how do you take those glasses off? Once you start to believe that you're a failure, how do you take those glasses off? Especially when I do think I'm a failure and I do think I'm a bad person and I see all kinds of evidence that proves it. You know, my kids were onto something with this conversation because for the first 40 years of my life, my theme song was, I've messed everything up. And for me, this is what it sounds like. Well, might as well just flush the last 40 years down the toilet because I kind of blew it in high school and college and I blew it in law school too. And I blew it in the first part of my marriage and I was not a terrible parent. I was a terrible parent. And if only I'd been more successful and had the house where all the kids hung out and had the money to join a country club and been there for every birthday party and every lacrosse game. And oh, if I had only bought Amazon stock 10 years ago, wait, there's more. If I only lived on a different street or had a different friend group or made different choices, if only I'd done it right. Well, I didn't do it right. And now it's too late. I guess it's all my fault. I really screwed things up. See, you've got some version of that in your head too. You've got some label that you've given yourself. Just like my husband had the label, I'm a failure. That's how he victimized himself. My daughter has the label, I'm a bad person. That's how she victimized herself. My other daughter has the label, well, I'm the biggest of all my friends. Nothing works out for me. That's how she victimized herself. My label, I screw everything up. That's how you victimize yourself. You need to identify the label. That's the pair of glasses that is tinting everything that you see. It's how you see your past. It's how you see yourself. It's how you see opportunity. We got to identify the label. So what is the label that you have given to yourself? You know, and as I write this sentence, it's hard for me to believe sometimes how far I've come. You know, I put a post on social media yesterday that was showing you photos of this house that Chris and I are building in Vermont. And it's overwhelming to walk into this extraordinary house that we're building because, you know, it was just over a decade ago that we were $800,000 in debt and about to lose it all. It was just 6 years ago, you guys, when my speaking business started and I started getting paid to deliver keynote motivational speeches. We still had liens on this house 6 years ago. And so to walk into this dream house that we are building and to realize that we have put our heads down, we have removed those labels, we have done the work to change the story about our life, we have done the work to stop victimizing ourselves and to start empowering ourselves, because that is the opposite of victimization. So step 2, after you identify that label and you make a promise to yourself that you're not going to call yourself those names, that's number 1, to stop victimizing yourself. Step 2 is create habits of empowering yourself, because empowering yourself, forgiving yourself, supporting yourself as you move forward and do the work to change your life, that's how you break the habit of victimizing yourself. And that's how you learn to do the opposite, which is supporting, empowering, cheering, celebrating yourself as you move forward. That's what's going to motivate you to do the action. And look, if Chris and I can go from having liens on this house 6 years ago to literally building an extraordinary business, changing our marriage to the point where we are building our dream house, a house that's so nice, I can't even believe we are going to live in this house because of the hard work that we've done. But I'll tell you, the singular habit that helped us do it is we stopped victimizing ourselves. We stopped labeling ourselves. We stopped beating the shit out of ourselves. And we broke that habit. We changed the narrative by learning how to empower ourselves. You know, you're going to hear part of the horror show of what my early days were like. But just a few years ago, my life was a slow motion train wreck. My confidence was in the gutter because we were facing bankruptcy. My marriage was failing. I had crushing anxiety. I was unemployed. That was me in 2008. I faced these issues like a lot of high functioning adults do. I numbed myself with alcohol. I screamed at Chris, and I did anything I possibly could to avoid my problems. I wish I were kidding. Honestly, it's why I have so much conviction about everything that I'm teaching you and sharing with you. It's because I've used everything that I'm teaching you to save my own life. That's why I know that they work. After 10 years of hard work, I've rewritten the story of my life, and I'm here to tell you, you can rewrite the story of your life. The first step is you must decide you want to. Then the second is you got to stop victimizing yourself and labeling yourself, because that keeps you trapped, seeing life and seeing yourself through a very dark lens. And once you stop labeling yourself, then you create a new habit. You do the opposite. You empower yourself, you cheer for yourself, you celebrate yourself, and that's going to help you do the work to change your life. That's how you do it. It's not a sexy formula, but it works. I've rewritten the story of my life using that formula. I got sick and tired of where I was. And so I made a fucking decision to change. That's what I did. And then I put my head down and I stopped saying I'm a bad person. And I started forgiving myself for the crap that I did. I started doing the work to change. I'm now an entrepreneur. I'm a best-selling author. And I'm one of the most booked speakers in the world, you guys. And I just got started in the speaking business 6 years ago. If you put in the work, you can make it happen. And you know, on this live stream, you see the person I've become. I confidently go after what I want. I crush it in business. I have an imperfect but beautiful 25-year marriage. We got 3 awesome kids. I am in the place that I'm meant to be. And I don't mean physical place. This is a spiritual and emotional and mental place. I love myself because I feel comfortable in my own skin. I love myself, everybody, because I don't label myself as a bad or selfish or broken or whatever person. I just encourage myself. I give myself compassion, and I work hard every fucking day to maintain that kind of relationship with myself. I have truly stopped victimizing myself, and I have empowered myself by encouraging and being compassionate with myself. And you're meant to feel this way about yourself too. This is how you're meant to feel. You're meant to feel comfortable in your own skin. You're meant to feel proud of yourself. You're meant to feel celebrated and encouraged by yourself. And look, I still don't live on the right street. I still don't belong to that country club. I can't go back and redo my college and my law school years. But here's what I can tell you. You can break the habit of beating yourself up over the past. You can break the habit of constantly victimizing and bashing yourself. You can break the habit of labeling yourself with these horrible labels and indicting yourself by saying, you are this way. No, the behavior that you engaged in may have sucked back then, but you don't suck. You're just a human being and you're figuring things out. And now that you know what you need to do better, you can do better. And here's the truth. There's no fast track to transformation. The steps are very simple and very easy, and I just explained them. But you're going to have to work these steps in little ways every single day. You can't buy self-esteem or self-love. You're going to have to build it. And a club membership, a different house, it doesn't change what's inside you. The way you change what's inside you is it takes sweat equity. You're going to have to stand face to face with the part of you that you hate. You're going to have to stand face to face and look yourself in the mirror and stop labeling yourself and victimizing yourself and finally fucking forgive yourself for everything that you've done that you've regretted, for the hurt that you've caused, especially, by the way, for the hurt that you caused yourself. And then you do the work to become a better you. That's how you stop victimizing yourself. That is how you change. It's the only way to create the self-respect and build the self-esteem that you deserve. My message to you is you can change. You can. There are do-overs in life. In fact, you get one every single morning when you wake up. Look in the mirror and you decide, who are you going to be today? Is today the day that you're going to stop saying you're a bad person and you're going to start pushing yourself forward and encouraging yourself to act like the good person that you are? Is today going to be the day that you stop saying that you're a failure and you forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made and you encourage yourself to start a new chapter, standing on top of all the wisdom that you learned based on those mistakes? That's where you learn shit, guys. It's not when you're winning. It's when things are broken. That's where you gain the experience and the skills that you need. You know, you can change. You can choose to change. You cannot go back in time, but you can start having your own back as you use the time you have now to take control of your future, as you encourage yourself to change your behavior, and as you start writing a new chapter that makes you proud. Not a chapter with the old label, a chapter with a new, encouraging approach to supporting yourself. You know, the hardest part, honestly, of doing this is flipping your focus from what you hate about yourself or your past, and you flip the focus toward what you want to create in your life. You know, I love the metaphor of driving a car forward. That's why a windshield is a lot bigger than the rearview mirror. You're meant to go forward. So you need to stop labeling yourself, because every time you call yourself a failure or a bad person, you're looking in the rearview mirror. You got to stop doing that, and you got to start encouraging yourself to drive forward, because that's what you deserve to do. Yep, you screwed up. Me too. You know, the worst things that you've done, witnessed, or survived, they are your most powerful teachers. So I want you to stop making yourself wrong about what happened. I want you to stop victimizing yourself and bashing yourself. And I want you to just unpack it with some compassion. Understand what happened to you. Understand why you respond like you did. Show yourself a little bit of forgiveness and curiosity. Learn the lessons that are woven into every mistake instead of labeling yourself a bad person. Because inside of everything painful that's going on, whether it's your passive aggressive behavior or your anxiety or your frustration or the cheating or the lying or the drinking or the failures or the whatever it is that you've done, inside all of that, if you will allow yourself to get curious and if you're compassionate, if you unpack it, you'll learn something about yourself that you really need to know. And you're only going to find it with a little bit of compassion. And look, when we pick up the book again and I start reading on page 67, I'm going to go first. That's right. I'm going to tell you about some of my screw ups. I'm going to share with you the gnarly, almost unrecognizable before picture of my life. I'm going to take you into two moments in my life that are so cringeworthy, you will not even recognize the person that I'm talking about. And sadly, they're 100% true. All right, we're going to stop right there on page 66 of chapter 5. We're going to pick up, you're not going to want to miss this in the next video, on page 67, where I take you through really the horrific shit I did when I was in college and law school. Stuff I'm not proud to share with you, but now I understand it's the result of the untreated childhood trauma that I had experienced. It's the result of having crushing anxiety that wasn't getting treated. And it was the result of me not understanding some of the deep-seated needs that I had. And so when I share these stories with you, I think, number one, it's going to show you you're not as bad as you think you are, especially when you hear the shit that I did. And number two, that when you understand what you did through the lens of compassion and you stop labeling yourself, there's all these epiphanies that open up, and you'll feel so empowered to finally do the work to heal what needs to get healed, to break patterns that need to get broken, and more importantly, to replace those old labels and those old victimizing, bashing, negative thought patterns with positive, encouraging, supportive new patterns. You'll also learn how to break those victimizing and awful patterns of behavior, and more importantly, replace them with positive, encouraging behavior. All of this is stuff that you can do. And that's what we're going to keep on doing. Starting today, you must stop labeling yourself, period. No labels, ever. That's number one. Number two, you can label the behavior that you regret because that helps you identify it and the patterns that you want to break and the things that you're going to unpack for the lesson. But never, ever, 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 ever label yourself. That's how we stay out of the realm of shame. That is how you stop victimizing and bashing yourself. Only talk about the behavior, never label yourself. And step number two, you must start to adopt habits of encouragement, habits of compassion, habits of forgiveness, and habits of celebration and self-support, because those new patterns will replace the old ones. And that's what's going to propel you forward. And it's going to help you build the life that you love. It's going to help you reconnect with yourself. And it's going to help you take off those horrible glasses that you're wearing where you view life through the lens of whatever label you got. That's how you do it.
I'm just on a mission to get everybody to add a high five to their reflection in the mirror every single morning after they brush your teeth. I want you to make it part of your morning routine. It takes less than 5 seconds. And what's really cool about it is that it leverages all kinds of programming that is already in your brain and in your nervous system that you have aimed and used to support and cheer for other people. Yeah. And I'm going to teach you that by adding a high five in the mirror every morning in the bathroom as part of your morning routine, you will turn all of that amazing brain and energy power right back at yourself. And so that's all that it is. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to do anything other than high five the mirror. Yes, it sounds cheesy. It is shocking how powerful it is. And so given that you have a background in the NFL, why don't you tell everybody what a high five when a teammate gives it to you, or you give it to them, or you give it to one of your kids? What does a high five mean in your brain, Trucks?
Yeah, I get little chills. You said that because it takes me back to memories of actually getting it right. I mean, for me, college, high school, college, NFL, you always have these moments where you're fighting to get something done. You're fighting to go play, to stand out. And not only do you have your teammates watch it, the whole stadium watch it. And when you have that moment, when you make a play and the crowd roars, like one of the coolest things is the people that you care most about, them walking up to you, looking you dead in your eyes and saying, great job, and then giving you a high five. Like it's an immersive, like everything disappears for a second, like, oh, I feel good. And then the reciprocation of that, right? When someone does well, it's like, oh my, how else do I express? But high five. And it's like you're giving that to somebody else and you see them express. It's like giving a gift. And so it's interesting, when you first told me this, I was like, that's so crazy how simple and it's been in front of everybody's faces this entire time. But yeah, I never thought of doing it to me.
Yeah. And what happens when you add this to your morning routine, and this is why this is so cool, is that the positive impact, and here's what you can expect. Number one, you can expect to experience a boost in your mood, and that's because your brain will give you a drip of dopamine. You can expect to feel a small jolt of energy. That's because your nervous system recognizes it as a celebratory gesture. And you can expect in less than 5 days of doing this every single morning as part of your morning routine, you can expect to have the critic in your head start to turn off. It's crazy. And, there's just a tremendous amount of research about how it works, why it works, but it's working because you have a lifetime of positive association with the high five. And what we know based on research is that if you want to change your life, your habits, your relationship, your health, anything, you want to make more money, what research shows is that you will be more successful, more inspired, more motivated, and more fulfilled if you are kind and encouraging to yourself along the way, especially when things are hard. And, I can play this out in a very common sense way. So let's say that you're on the field, right? Take us back to a really big moment where you were the person that was like the person that was supposed to catch the ball or do whatever and score the touchdown. That was going to take us back to a moment like that.
Yeah, so it was big defense, and I was playing. We're playing at Arizona State, and it was my senior year, and it was like 3rd and long, and Arizona's at our place. We need to win the game. I think we're ahead. We needed to get a stop, and there was a play call where I got the blitz. And here's a funny thing: I found out afterwards that the adjustment they made, I shouldn't have blitzed, and so all of a sudden the ball's hiked. I take off, and the quarterback almost gets away. I have a video of this. I dive to the left. My fingertips grab his shoulder pads just enough to swing him down. We stop him for a loss, sack. The stadium erupts. I'm by myself. There's no teammates around. And just this flood of amazing. To this day, I can still picture the people's eyes I caught when I was looking in the stands.
Incredible. By the way, what you just described, that moment where the stadium erupts and your nervous system has this jolt of electricity, so riveting and pulling you into the presence that even a decade or so later, you can remember the faces of the people who you looked in the eyes. Mm-hmm. What you're describing is the opposite of trauma. That is a positive celebratory imprint in your nervous system. Your brain remembers that experience, and so does your body, because you got such a flood of positive experience that just like trauma gets remembered in the negative, those positive moments, those heightened states of emotion also get remembered, which is a really important thing to understand. So back to this kind of moment. So let's say that right before you're all about to line up, timeout, you all go over to the sideline. Mm-hmm. And you're in a huddle and you're talking about the play. And it's now determined that you're the person. Tell me, what do you need to hear from that coach in that moment so that you feel empowered and capable and confident in your ability to rise to this moment?
If I was genuinely thinking about it, I'd be like, hey, just a look in the eyes of you got this. I have no doubt you got it. Just that little, or even, it's funny, football coaches don't do that. Somebody just look at you like a grin, kind of I know you got this. Mm-hmm. That's all I need.
Yeah. Now imagine if you're in that situation where you're facing this big moment and the coach looked at you and said, okay, it's trucks. And people around go, trucks? Are you shitting me?
That'd be a different feeling.
Did you see what he did? That loser? He's not going to make that, and they start trashing you. What would happen to your level of motivation and to your mood? How would you feel in that moment?
Fall off a cliff. It would. You wouldn't. It would be
Yeah.
It'd almost be like you'd focus so heavily on like not hitting the tree, you'd hit the tree.
Correct. I'm taking you to this storytelling to illustrate a very simple point. We all need every single day that coach to look us in the eye before we start the day and say, you got this. And you need to do that for yourself. And what's happening for every human being right now in the morning is that as they're brushing their teeth, what you're thinking is, you can't handle this. You already fucked up yesterday and you're already behind the ball, and you're trashing yourself before you send yourself into your day. And just like those teammates would make you fall off the cliff, every single one of us, as part of our morning routine, we push ourselves off a cliff, mentally, emotionally, mood, all of it. And that's how we all start our day subconsciously. And I want to get everybody to start practicing this high five, because what happens is you tap into that programming of the coach. And even if you screwed up, raising your hand says, shake it off. I still believe in you. Now get out there and go do it. And that's what you're going to feel shifting in your mind, body, and spirit. The sense of belief, the sense of encouragement that we all need to face the day. That's what the high five habit is. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.